What is up, guys? This is your boy Superior Simmer. Today I have some more information regarding The Sims. If you guys like news, updates, and discussions, please hit the sub button. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. I also do have an affiliate link with Instagame to bring you guys cheaper games. If you guys click the right side of the screen or the link in the description, you guys will find a bunch of deals on cheaper game titles. They have action RPGs, adventure games, of course, simulation, racing. Without further ado, let's get into the content.
All right, guys, so we have a bunch of Sims news to cover today. First, starting off with a post from the Sims Direct Communications. So they said, Simmers, we are performing final testing on fixes scheduled for our June 30th base game update. Watch for more in our next launcher list on June 23rd. You can expect to see fixes for a doctor and actor careers, pets, dynasties, the gallery, and more. And they also mentioned that gallery fixes include an issue that was preventing players from downloading custom tattoos, endless loading, as well as the soft locking on consoles. Again, more in our June 23rd laundry list. Now, looking at some of the comments, it seems people are still having issues with their game. That is no surprise. It's funny to see that there's people now saying, listen, just stop touching the game, leave it. You know, it's just going to make things worse. Obviously, people want patch updates to resolve the issues, but it seems like the patch updates aren't really fixing majority of issues, or if it does fix one thing, it breaks something else. And that's kind of been the recurring theme with the Sims 4 updates. It fixes one thing, but then breaks 10 things, and it just never ends. Again, later on in the video, we are going to be talking about Project X, and I think this is why the reasons why they should kind of let this game go dormant and move on to a next Sims title that everyone can enjoy with a new foundation. Again, make it free so people can transfer over the packs. Again, I could be wrong, but from what I've heard, Project X is supposed to be this better version of the Sims 4, but it's also not like the Sims 5. It's kind of like this weird in-between thing. I don't know if we're going to be able to transfer our packs over. Again, I've talked about this so many times. I've made videos about this. I don't think people want to pay for seasons and cats and dogs and raccoons as DLC. I think that era of buying DLC over and over again for a new Sims game is dead. That doesn't mean DLC for games is dead. DLC has become like the norm for a lot of games, but I think people are tired of buying the same shit over and over, especially now that like the trust between the community and the developers is broken. I just don't really see players like falling for that trap again. I mean, I've seen some polls and I'm pretty sure a lot of players voted just to stick with the Sims 4 and not move on to a new game. Now, don't get me wrong, I think the issues that we're having with the Sims 4 wouldn't happen with Project X. I think a lot of people have that mindset like, oh, if it's broken in Sims 4, it's going to be broken in Project X, and I don't think that's true. Again, this is on a new foundation. I don't know like all the info, but I know Sims 4 was a rushed game, and when it was released, it wasn't a finished product. Someone could argue it's still not finished. I feel like for the most part, it's like 80% finished in my opinion, but right, it's a sandbox life sim. They can always add more stuff. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how the future of the Sims changes. Now, moving on very quickly, shout out to the Sims community for these next two posts. EA announces their first free Sims 4 maker packs along with new paid releases. Now, I've heard mixed things. I've seen a lot of people overall say they don't like the marketplace, and then I also seen people say, oh, like the marketplace is doing well, but now I'm seeing people say, oh no, the marketplace is kind of going downhill. It's not looking too good, and this is their way to try to entice players to like buy stuff. If they go there, they get the free stuff, they're like, oh, I might like this hairstyle or like this makeup collection, and then they might entice them to want to buy that along with the free stuff. So I feel like that's what they're trying to do here because it's struggling. But yeah, all you have to do is just go to the marketplace on the homepage and you should see the free stuff. It's like shoes with like this floral pattern, and then there's also like this couch. It looks decent. Again, you can't complain, it's free stuff, so it is there if you guys want that. Now, again, shout out to the Sims community. Now, looking at the article, I'm just gonna read this bar for bar. They said it's been 2 weeks since we last heard from the Sims Insider on the new Sims Project X development updates and behind the scenes information on the Sims studio. The Insider returned last night on the ATRL with new tea spills about a new Sims 4 Kit collaboration on the way, confirming that the Sims 4 Kids collaboration will be the last form of pre-release content for the game until sunsets. So sunsets meaning, is that like it's over? I think that's what they're trying to say. The Insider also talked about research EA took from upcoming open neighborhood system for the Sims Project X, confirming that the reason for choosing open neighborhoods versus open worlds is simply out of the fact that there's more player hours and stability. The Insider mentions that EA developers were closely watching the recent launch of Paralives and mentioned how the moment they don't feel threatened for what they have in store with Sims Project X. Okay, this is juicy. It's no secret that the Sims team is watching these other life simulation games like Inzoi and obviously Paralives very closely. Paralives, I feel like, has a very strong foundation compared to Inzoi. I think there's something with Paralives that just draws players a little bit more than Inzoi. I think Inzoi looks sexy. Like, I think that's Inzoi's thing. It's like, it's just very sexy, but I think that's about it. Not to say Inzoi is bad, right? I think it's for an acquired taste. It just depends on what you're looking for. If you want something a little bit more realistic, you know, I think Inzoi is what you want to play. But if you want something a little bit more, and I hate saying this because I think it's cringe, cozy. If you want cozy vibes, you're gonna want to play Paralives, right? So there's a statement here saying, just watch the Paralives trailer and not gonna lie, they really should be worried about Project X if their whole strategy is just better graphics and open neighborhoods. Meanwhile, Paralives has a full open world, a bunch of generally interesting build mode innovations, low-key hoping Paralives scares EA enough to finally throw a bigger budget at Project X and make actually competitive features, because otherwise this thing is gonna flop hard. The Sims Insider also mentioned that I'll answer the first one, but the short version is EA don't care about Sims 3 competitors. The long version is EA and of course Maxis know from their experience with the Sims 3 and the various prototypes of Sims games that they have come up that the Sims 3 setup of one ongoing open world is simply a recipe for disaster when it comes to game stability. While EA are obviously interested in specific aspects of Inzoi and Paralives and adoptable features, EA doesn't see these games as a threat, simply because they already know from experience with the Sims 3 that the gameplay setup pretty much has 9% failure rate, with only a lucky few being able to play long term with no game or save breaking issues. I think one of the biggest conversations I've seen people have is the fact that the limitations of some of these games are also because of the consumers. A lot of the people who play Sims are not like typical gamers. That's why when like people talk about modding and people paying for mods, you know, a lot of people outside of the Sims community look at it as like, why is this a thing? Like, it's weird, especially if you play other games. It's just not like something that's normalized. But people within the Sims community who've only played Sims think it's okay to like pay for stuff. Again, I don't see anything wrong with supporting people, but it's just not something that happens in the gaming community. You just don't pay for mods. Like, it's something that is frowned upon. Again, it's technically illegal depending on what game you're modding. Like, most times it's illegal. You got to remember that these type of people don't have super gaming computers, right? These guys play on their computer from work or their computer they use for school. Like, they don't have gaming computers. So you have to think about who's buying your game. So if you're making an open world life sim game, I can see them not trying to really do that because of the consumers. Some people can't even run Inzoi, right? Inzoi is beautiful. It's very ambitious, but a lot of people can't run it. So that's why their player base is so small. Now, they mentioned they already knew Inzoi to have the players it does now, regardless of how good it is. They have fairly solid expectations. The same will happen with Paralives because it's incredibly hard and requires hundreds and hundreds of manpower to develop an open life simulator to run indefinitely reliably. That's why the Sims 4 and Project X were never going to open the door to open world concepts or ideas. So yeah, I kind of just mentioned that with Inzoi, how like they kind of limited their player base when they decided to go crazy, which again, nothing's wrong with that. But yeah, again, it just sounds like they're like, you know what, open world is not a good idea long term, which makes sense. Now, I'd love to know your guys' thoughts and opinions, even if you're not buying Project X, whatever, like whether it's free or not. Just in general, do you guys care if a Sims game is open neighborhood or just open world? Like, what do you guys think? Yeah, they continue saying that the more you fill in a single playable space at any given time, the more variables that open up. Limiting the variables make it controllable, not limiting them makes them uncontrollable. On top of that, never allowing your game to reset is just asking for eventual error or corruption issue. People say, how come I have a loading screen just to visit my neighbor in regards to the Sims 4, but what people don't realize is the entire world unloads and then reloads fresh in order to keep things simple and manageable moving between venue types or families. Same even with player built apartments. There's probably a very easy solution to make apartments in for rent load without a full reload, but if a player continues to load between them for long periods of time without leaving the lot, you open the door to more potential issues that can unfold by not having any kind of hard reset. In summary, EA have no interest and aren't even afraid of publicly welcoming the competition when it comes to games like Inzoi or Paralives, because they have no interest in being in competition with Sims 3 inspired games. They know the issues that will come from that setup. I will say not a single person at Max or EA would be surprised if the number one reported issue with Paralives is save corruption or issues caused by longer/larger save files, because they predicted it before it went live. They know that Irons will likely dwindle as casual players run into issues or lost save files and walk away. I have a lot of opinions on this article. I think Paralives having save corruption so early on is, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, it's pretty bad. Like, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I think one of the worst things that could happen is them having a save corruption issue, because there could be someone that's like obviously getting into the game and then boom, they just lose their save file. I could see people be like, you know what, I already kind of gave you guys a chance, this game is not finished, and then I lose my save file. I'm up and out, like I'm not staying. So that could be a big thing that will turn off a lot of players if like you're losing save files, especially so early on when the game is still being made. Again, I understand the game's in early access, process, but people have a right to walk away if they're gonna, you know, go into losing save files. Like I don't blame people for wanting to not want to play Paralyzed if that happens. Now this also talks about Grant Roderick. So if you guys don't know, he was the game director for Project Renee originally. I don't know who it is now. Project Renee was supposed to be the open world next Sims game. That's what they made it sound like. They never said it wasn't. They didn't say that it was. It was this weird. It was this whole thing that just was really confusing at the time. And then Grant, I apparently did not like the direction that the game was going in. Like he mentioned in his post saying basically he wanted to go somewhere where he can, you know, really like go crazy and use new technology to kind of push the boundaries of like life simulation. And he wasn't able to do that with Project Renee, so that's why he left. That was like kind of like my own understanding of why he left. They mentioned that I believe EA was nervous about Grant Roderick, I might be saying his name wrong, working on a life simulator, as he has had first-hand knowledge on the direction from open world back to closed. And I'm sure there was a sigh of relief when the project was revealed to be nothing like The Sims. He has the knowledge to make a really good Sims 4 competitor. Now this talks more about the Sims 5 and the Sims Project X. So they say it have been very public that there will not be a Sims 5. X may be called 5, but it will be name only, but a proper Sims 5 will likely never happen. Again guys, take this with a grain of salt. I should have said this in the beginning of the video when I started talking about this, but this is all alleged stuff. But yeah, they said EA did extensive surveys and workshops in 2019 and early 2020, and it was unanimous that the Sims 5 was not going to fly. Majority of people aren't Sims players, they're Sims 4 players exclusively. What does that even mean though? So they mentioned the reason why the latest EP wasn't just a royalty pack, but was instead a pack focused on royalty and legacies, is because EA know how deep players get into the Sims 4 and how a substantial amount of play with legacies and long-term families or multiple long-term families. 5, they know Sims 5 where players will need to start a fresh shave won't appeal. I personally feel like that's bullshit. The same way there's no Minecraft 2, they know players attached to what they've created in a brand new game creates a huge hurdle majority of players don't want to jump. If EA could have their way, X wouldn't exist and the Sims 4 will continue to be updated indefinitely. Unfortunately, the backlog is just too resource intensive to maintain, and smaller fixes like DirectX upgrades were proving difficult to achieve any improvements. Project X is definitely reluctance and a gamble, but not a projected throwaway flop that the Sims side would be based on extensive market research. So they also mentioned, as far as other questions, people source this EA looking to find employees to work on the Sims 4 expansion pack. So they said, I believe EA were already forced to take down job ads that mentioned Project X. But they're hiring for Gen AI engineers, as it's not ruled out. The Project X won't continue the Sims 4 branding. I'm not sure if there's any juice to this yet. I haven't spoken to many people since my trip has been my main focus, but I'll ask around and see. But my understanding is kit bundles are serving the Sims 4 into the sunset. There most likely will not be any more expansion packs. They'll just be kits until the Sims 4 is completely dead. And that is pretty much it on this article. So yeah, this is very interesting. I think there's a lot to take away from this. Again, I might have missed some stuff. You guys can read this on your own, but I feel like I covered all the important stuff. Kind of sad to see where the Sims is headed, man. It's just unfortunate, but it is what it is. But yeah, I would love to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions on this. I think this whole situation is just like insane. But yeah, if you guys have made it to the end of this video, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for watching. This has been your boy Superior Simmer. I hope you guys have a good day and take care.